1944. A long, gray freight train screeches to a halt in the heart of Kansas. Dust rises from the prairie, swirling around the line of captured German soldiers stepping down under guard. Among them stands Captain Adler Weiss, 32, Wehrmacht officer, once decorated on the Eastern Front. His boots sink into the soft soil, and for the first time in years, he cannot hear the rhythm of drums or the bark of orders. Only the wind and the hum of engines far away. He looks around. No towers, no soldiers drilling, no men at all. "Where are your men?" he asks a sergeant guarding the ramp. The American points toward the open plains. "At war," he says. "The women run this place." The sentence lands like a blow. In Adler's world, women were caretakers, not commanders. Yet beyond the barbed wire, dozens of figures move with mechanical grace. They are women, their hair tied with bright red kerchiefs, steering giant tractors across the horizon. Sunlight flashes on metal, on sweat, on laughter. Engines roar like tanks, but the drivers wear denim and lipstick. Adler blinks, disoriented. His war of parades and medals has ended. A different army has taken the field. As the prisoners march toward Camp Concordia, the landscape stretches wide and golden. Rows of wheat shimmer under the heat, each stalk taller than his waist. The air smells of oil and harvest. Kansas in 1944 is the beating heart of America's home front, one of the centers where the Women's Land Army works without rest to feed both soldiers abroad and prisoners within. Over 1 million women had already joined its ranks nationwide, keeping production near pre-war levels despite the absence of men. Some farms in the Midwest report record yields, 35 bushels per acre, a statistic that stuns every captured German agronomist questioned by the U.S. Army. Inside the camp, Adler finds barracks clean, organized, strangely peaceful. The guards are few, the fences low. A notice board lists weekly work rotations, harvest, maintenance, kitchen duty. No one shouts, no one salutes, yet everything functions. That, more than the tractors, unsettles him. Discipline without command, order without fear, it defies the world he served. That night, as he sits on his bunk, Adler hears music drifting from beyond the wire. Women's voices sing over the rumble of distant engines, a folk tune carried by the wind. He tries to sleep, but the melody clings to him like a question he cannot answer. In Berlin, propaganda reels had mocked American women dancing in factory overalls. Now those same women command machines that till half a continent. The realization gnaws at his pride. Tomorrow, he will see them up close. And the first crack in his certainty has already begun. If you value stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps preserve forgotten chapters of history. Share your location and your local time in the comments. From where are you listening tonight? The dawn in Kansas is not quiet. It rises with the metallic cough of engines, the clatter of tools, and the smell of hot oil on steel. Captain Adler Weiss stands at the edge of the compound, watching a line of women stride across the fields before the sun clears the horizon. Their boots crunch the frost, their sleeves rolled to the elbow, clipboards in hand. No trumpets, no officers, no shouted orders. And yet, in less than 10 minutes, every tractor is roaring, every combine aligned. Adler turns to Corporal Fischer beside him, another captured soldier from the 11th Panzer Division. "No discipline," he mutters, "no command chain." Fischer shrugs. But everything works. From behind the wire, they see how the women divide into teams, fuel, maintenance, planting, harvesting, without hesitation. One of them, a red-haired woman named Helen, walks the line with a wrench tucked into her belt and a notebook under her arm. She notes oil levels, nods to her team, and moves on. When a younger girl asks permission to start early, Helen laughs. "Don't ask, just do." That line stays in Adler's mind all day. In his world, hesitation could mean punishment. In theirs, initiative was trust. The Kansas Women's Land Army had been born out of necessity. By mid-1943, nearly 15 million American men were in uniform, and farms across the country risked collapse. The U.S. Department of Agriculture turned to women, recruiting them through posters, radio calls, even beauty magazines. They came from cities and small towns, teachers and secretaries, daughters of mechanics and mothers of toddlers. They called themselves farmerettes. Some camps counted 300 volunteers, others were barely 50, running entire counties on grit and gasoline. Records from that year show how astonishingly efficient they became. A 1944 USDA report noted that female crews working independently harvested 17% more per acre than supervised male units. To the prisoners, this bordered on absurdity. To the Americans, it was survival. Adler's eyes follow as two women haul fuel drums into place and start refilling the tractors. The men behind him whisper, half mocking, half awed. One says, "Back home, my wife can't even fix a lamp." Another laughs softly. Maybe she never had to. That afternoon, Adler's work detail is assigned to stack hay bales near the fence. Across the field, he sees Helen again, now checking spark plugs, her hands blackened with grease. The smallest gesture, a handkerchief wiped across her brow, a motion of command, feels like an act of defiance. These were not the women his government's films had shown cowering in fear. These were soldiers without uniforms, engineers without rank. As dusk falls, the women park their machines in perfect rows. They gather near the barn, eating sandwiches, trading jokes, and writing quick notes home. No officers oversee them, no bugle signals the end of day. Yet order hums through the air like a well-tuned engine. Adler watches in silence, the faintest unease growing in his chest. "No discipline," he whispers again, but the words ring hollow. For the first time, he wonders if discipline is truly about obedience, or understanding what must be done before anyone tells you. When lights dim and the tractors fall silent, a new kind of respect settles in the camp, quiet and contagious. Even the wind seems to pause. By noon, the Kansas sun burns white above the fields, and the smell of oil mixes with cut wheat and diesel smoke. Captain Adler wipes his brow with the edge of his sleeve, but his eyes keep returning to the woman working nearest the fence. She moves with certainty, sleeves rolled, curls pinned back with a strip of red fabric. Her name is Joan Turner, 24, former schoolteacher from Topeka, now chief mechanic for 3 tractors and a combine older than she is. The bright ribbon tied in her hair catches sunlight every time she bends to adjust a valve. Adler cannot stop staring. The contradiction fascinates him. The neat bow beside hands blackened with grease. When the work crew pauses for water, he finally speaks through the fence. "Why wear a ribbon?" he asks in careful English. "When your hands look like a soldier's." Joan glances up, eyes amused. "Because we can be both." The words strike harder than any propaganda. In the Wehrmacht, duality was weakness. Here, it is identity. That afternoon, a storm rolls across the plains, flattening light into steel gray. The women hurry to cover machinery, while Adler and the other prisoners secure the hay bales. Joan works beside a younger girl named Elsie, humming through the thunder. When a gust tears the tarp loose, she grabs it and laughs. Adler, watching from the barn doorway, feels a twinge of admiration he cannot explain. In Germany, women had been ordered to bear children for the Reich. They were told their battlefield was the cradle. Yet, in America, he sees them commanding machines, deciding tasks, solving problems without waiting for permission. Between chores, the prisoners whisper stories, rumors carried from camp to camp. One tells of a Rosie poster hung in every factory, a woman flexing her arm beneath the slogan, "We can do it." Another mentions a riveter from Michigan who built more B-24 bombers than any man in her division. Adler imagines her face, strong and determined, splattered with aluminum dust instead of powder. He begins jotting small notes in his confiscated diary, hidden between ration pages. "Women work beside engines as if born to them," he writes. "They whistle and joke. They take pride in the dirt. They repair as if repairing the world." The camp guards, mostly young Americans from the Midwest, treat the women with open respect. No shouting, no crude remarks, only gestures of shared labor, passing tools, helping with barrels, nodding in mutual exhaustion. Adler studies these interactions as if decoding an unfamiliar code of honor. In his army, respect had to be earned through rank or fear. Here, it seems to flow naturally, a current of equality that needs no command. One evening, Joan walks past the fence, her red ribbon tucked now around her wrist like a bracelet. She nods toward him. "You learn engines?" she teases. Adler almost smiles. "I learn more than that." He watches her disappear into the fading light, leaving behind the smell of oil and wildflowers. That ribbon, he realizes, is more than decoration. It is a flag of quiet rebellion, proof that strength can carry grace, that power can wear color. The next morning, he ties a thin strip of torn cloth around his wrist, not as a symbol of defiance, but of memory. The morning begins with a low, steady growl of engines, but by midday the rhythm falters. One of the tractors sputters, coughs twice, and dies in the middle of the field. Joan pulls off her gloves and slides from the seat, landing ankle-deep in dust. She taps the tank, listens to the silence, and mutters, "Fuel's fine, it's the carburetor again." Adler stands nearby with his work crew, loading hay into a wagon. The guard, a young corporal named Jenkins, squints through the heat haze. "You want me to send for a mechanic?" he calls out. Joan waves him off. "I'm the mechanic." She disappears beneath the chassis, feet sticking out, wrench clinking against metal. The prisoners pause their work, some smirking, others curious. Adler watches as her hand reaches out, feeling for the right bolt. He knows engines. He was trained in logistics, once oversaw tank repairs outside Smolensk. Every instinct urges him to take control, to command, to instruct. But he stays silent. Then a puff of black smoke rises. The engine shudders and roars back to life. Joan crawls out, wiping oil from her cheek with the back of her wrist. "Told you," she says to no one in particular. The men behind Adler burst out laughing, half in disbelief, half in admiration. He alone remains quiet. His gaze lingers on the hammer in her hand, the sunlight glinting off the dented steel, and for the first time he feels something close to humility. "In Berlin," he murmurs, "they'd call her mad. Here they call her capable." Later that evening, as the fields turn gold, Adler sits near the fence with his ration tin, staring at the horizon. He remembers the parades, columns of men, banners fluttering, speeches about destiny. Those speeches had promised an invincible empire built by men of iron will. Yet it is women, he thinks now, who keep a nation running while the men destroy each other. Inside his small notebook, he writes, "Machines obey those who listen. Perhaps that is why she succeeds. She listens to the sound, the rhythm, the resistance. We never listened. We only commanded." He closes the book as thunderheads build far to the west. Across the field, Joan and the other women laugh around a truck bed, passing lemonade bottles, their laughter cutting through the coming storm. The scene looks almost like peace. When the rain finally breaks, Adler helps the guards pull tarps over the haystack. No one orders him, he just acts. Jenkins doesn't stop him. The American only nods once, a wordless acknowledgement that work is work, and dignity has no uniform. That night, as rain drips from the roof of the barrack, Adler lies awake. The sound of the storm mixes with the memory of engines. Somewhere beyond the fence, Joan's tractor sits silent, still gleaming wet under the lightning. He realizes he no longer feels shame in seeing her strength. What unsettles him now is that he had never imagined it possible. By August, the heat in Kansas grows heavy and golden, and the fields stretch like oceans of rippling grain. The harvest is nearly done. Each dawn, tractors roll through the mist, the women steering with bandaged hands, the prisoners stacking sheaves along the fence. Captain Adler Weiss works silently now, sleeves rolled, no longer the officer who measured strength by rank. He moves with rhythm, side by side, with men who once mocked this work. When the final load is hauled in, the farm owner, Mr. Dawson, calls everyone to the barnyard for a photograph, a gesture of gratitude before the POWs are transferred. He brings out his old box camera, the kind with the flashbulb that pops like lightning. "Line up," he shouts. The women gather first, brushing dust from their jeans. The Germans stand awkwardly at a distance, unsure if they belong in the frame. Joan waves them closer. "Come on, Captain, you worked for it too." Adler hesitates, then steps forward. The sun is behind them now, turning the wheat to fire. He finds himself standing beside Joan, both holding a bundle of freshly cut stalks. For a moment, the world is quiet. The war, the camps, the fences, everything fades into the smell of earth and summer. The flash bursts, the moment freezes forever. Later, when the photograph dries, Mr. Dawson hands out a few copies. Adler studies his carefully. In the picture, the women's faces are open, smiling. The prisoners look uncertain, almost humbled. He traces the image with his finger and whispers in German, "Sie tragen die Nation." They carry the nation. That night, in his notebook, he writes, "They stand unarmed, yet hold up a nation. They plow, mend, and feed. If this is weakness, then strength is a lie we told ourselves." The same photo would later be archived at Camp Aliceville, Alabama, one of many images documenting how German POWs worked alongside American civilians. A historian decades later would note, "For many, this was the first time they saw equality in action, not as a slogan, but as a routine of the day." As September arrives, the camp prepares to move its prisoners south to Texas. Joan brings Adler a small envelope wrapped in brown paper. Inside is a copy of the photo and a short note. "Don't forget who really won the war for the fields." He smiles faintly, unable to find words. For days afterward, he keeps the photo folded in his pocket, unfolding it at night under the dim bulb of the barrack. His fellow prisoners tease him, calling it the American souvenir. He does not answer. For him, it is no joke. It is a mirror. Have you ever seen a single photograph change what someone believes? Could an image really defeat an ideology faster than a battlefield? Adler, looking at that picture, begins to suspect the answer is yes. The Kansas nights grow longer as the harvest season fades. In the dim barrack light, Captain Adler Weiss sits at his small wooden desk, the same one where he once carved dates into the edge to count his captivity. Now, the notches have stopped. Instead, he writes, "The Red Cross allows one censored letter per month. No politics, no military notes, no mention of guards or camp life." But Adler has learned that truth can hide inside the lines between words. He begins slowly, in neat handwriting. "Dear Lotte, I hope you and Mother are safe. The fields here are endless and the people tireless. America's army is fed by women who never complain, never rest. Perhaps that is why we lost. He pauses, knowing that sentence might never pass the censors. He rewrites it. Their strength is quiet. They carry their burden without asking who commands. He signs it with a simple A and folds the letter carefully. He knows the Red Cross officer will read it before it leaves camp, but he hopes its meaning will survive the ink. At the far end of the barrack, Corporal Fisher plays harmonica softly, a German tune fading into the prairie wind. The men talk about home, about when the war will end, about whether Berlin still stands. But Adler no longer joins their talk of victory or defeat. His war ended the day he saw Joan crawl beneath the tractor without waiting for permission. He opens his diary again, the one the Americans allowed him to keep. The last entry reads, "Strength is not noise, it is persistence without applause." In other camps across the United States, similar thoughts were forming. Diaries from Iowa, Texas, and Oklahoma reveal a quiet revolution in the minds of German prisoners. Many wrote about the same astonishment: women repairing engines, running dairies, teaching children, voting in local councils. In Camp Herne, one prisoner named Hans Lange wrote in 1945, "We were told America was weak, but their women build planes. We were told we were strong, but we destroy what they build." For the first time, Adler feels shame not for losing, but for misunderstanding what strength means. He realizes that the foundation of his world, the belief in masculine superiority, was never strength at all, only fear of being equaled. One evening, a storm rolls through again, and thunder echoes across the plains. Joan passes the fence, soaked from rain, still working, helping the guards secure the grain stores. She waves at him, her face lit briefly by lightning. He nods back, knowing words are useless between them now. The silence is understanding enough. When the next morning comes, the Red Cross truck departs with the prisoner's mail. Adler watches it vanish down the dirt road. Somewhere across the ocean, that letter will reach Berlin, perhaps his sister's hands. Maybe she will read between the lines, see the man who once believed in conquest, now conquered by humility. And in that unseen moment, one more small defeat will become a quiet victory. 2 decades later, the summer sun in Texas glows the same way it did in Kansas, bright, relentless, golden. The county fairgrounds hum with tractors and laughter, children running between food stalls, banners fluttering against the sky. Among the crowd walks an older man in a plain linen suit, his hair silver, his stride deliberate. The name on his visitor tag reads Adler Weiss, Hamburg. He stops near the machinery exhibit, where the newest model of a John Deere harvester gleams like polished armor. A woman climbs down from the driver's seat, brushing straw from her sleeve. Her hair, still the same copper hue, is shorter now, streaked with light. She turns, squinting through the sun. "Captain Weiss?" she calls. He smiles, the years collapsing in a heartbeat. "Miss Turner." Joan laughs. "It's Mrs. Dawson now. I married the farmer." They walk together through the fair, past stalls selling homemade pies and ribbons embroidered with Best Crop Yield 1964. Everywhere around them, men and women work side by side, checking machines, trading advice, no trace of rank or difference. The world Adler once knew, built on hierarchies and commands, has dissolved into partnership. They stop before the old tractor on display, its paint faded but engine preserved. "That's the one," Joan says softly, "the one that broke down in the field." Adler nods. "And you fixed it?" "You helped," she teases. "I only watched," he replies, "but I learned more than I ever did at any academy." They both laugh, the sound blending into the fairground's hum. As evening comes, a brass band begins to play. The fair organizers ask veterans and former POWs to stand for a moment of recognition. A few men rise from the benches, gray-haired Americans and 1 or 2 Europeans like him. Adler hesitates, then stands. People applaud politely, not for war, but for what came after. He glances at Joan, who claps with the crowd, her hands still strong, still oil-stained from her day's work. When the applause fades, she leans toward him. "Still think women are weak, Captain?" He chuckles, shaking his head. "You proved me wrong before the war was over." Later, as the sun sets, they walk toward the parking lot. Joan's grandsons load boxes of wheat samples into a pickup truck. Adler watches them, then looks back at the fair, a place where strength and grace no longer compete, only coexist. He takes from his coat pocket a worn photograph, edges frayed, the one taken in Kansas in 1944. The paper has faded, but the faces still glow with the same mix of pride and exhaustion. Joan sees it and smiles. "I keep mine in the kitchen," she says. He studies the image one last time, the young man and woman holding wheat together, their shadows stretching across the soil. History, he thinks, is not made only by battles, but by hands that build what battles destroy. The fair lights flicker on, bathing the field in gold. He folds the photograph gently, places it back in his pocket, and says quietly, "Perhaps this is what victory looks like." Years later, when the wars have receded into the pages of history books, people will still find those photographs, the women in kerchiefs, the prisoners behind the fence, the silent exchange of work and respect. Most will see only a footnote, German POWs assisted with harvest under civilian supervision. But if they look closer, they might notice the transformation that statistics can't record, the way one man's world crumbled and another began to form from the dust of a Kansas field. Captain Adler Weiss returned to Hamburg to find ruins, but also to find women rebuilding walls, hauling bricks, driving cranes. He no longer saw fragility, he saw resilience. The strength he once mocked had been the very thing holding civilization together. He would never again use the word weak without remembering the woman under the tractor, the ribbon stained with grease, the hands that fed armies while empires collapsed. In the end, the war that destroyed cities also exposed a deeper truth, that the quiet persistence of ordinary people, especially women long overlooked, is what allows nations to rise after they fall. A bomb can shatter a street in seconds. A single harvest, tended with care, can feed the future. Sometimes, history remembers generals and speeches, but sometimes it remembers a photograph, faded, creased, still glowing with the light of a summer long gone. And in that photograph, the past and the future hold hands across a bundle of wheat, proving that dignity, once recognized, can never be forgotten. So perhaps the lesson of Captain Weiss is not about defeat or victory, but about sight, the courage to see what was always there,